Welcome to the Knowledge for Men show. Your life will never be the same.
Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development.
I want to die empty of regret. I want to die empty of my best work. We don't understand who we are. Instead, we're living out somebody else's narrative.
What one man can do, another man can do. If it's been done, it can be done again.
Being yourself and being your truest, most authentic self in every moment. If it scares you or makes you a little afraid, do it. Follow your heart and your gut.
The first stage, I think, is finding you, like finding out who I am today.
Stuff will not work. You will have things that fail. Success is when you're a happy, fulfilled person. How do you define success?
It's your life, and you are the creator of the movie script that is your life story.
All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with Dean Graziosi. He's a motivational speaker, real estate entrepreneur, and America's #1 real estate educator with over 400 investment properties. We've got quite the show here. He's got multiple New York Times best-selling books. And Dean, I'm happy to have you here. All right, Dean. And so just to kickstart off the show, we start every episode with like a favorite success quote or some sort of saying that the guest has lived by. So what do you got for us?
Yeah, that's a good one. You know, the only one that's been on my desk for years has been Winston Churchill's The Definition of Success is going from failure to failure without losing your enthusiasm.
Classic quote, very powerful quote, and very simple. You know, what does that mean to you? And how does that play a role in your journey so far?
You know, I think because as being an entrepreneur, being someone that wants to live with your heart instead of in your mind too much, and someone who wants to follow their passion and explore their unique abilities and all those things, is failure is just part of this road that happens continuously. And I think it's there on purpose. As you look back in hindsight, you realize that the failures is what made you the strongest, right? What do they say, that quote that the smoothest rocks are always in the roughest part of the stream, right? Yeah. And I think that, you know, I feel bad in so many cases. You'll see somebody give up on relationships for the rest of their life because of one bad one, or give up on business because of one failed opportunity, or giving up trying to evolve through the ranks where they work or play because it failed once, and that stings so much that they stop. And I think if we can just take that simple quote and go, no, that's just part of the path. These failures are getting that out of the way. I know that's simple and everybody knows that, but living by it and knowing it are completely two different things.
Absolutely. Yeah. Knowing the path is one thing, but walking the path is a whole nother story.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that kind of gives us a little bit about, you know, I'm assuming that there's been some tough battles along in your journey. So let's take a few steps back before we kind of touch on the things you're doing now, and let's learn more about you. Like, you know, how did you get started with what you do? Were you always, you know, an entrepreneur? Were you successful right from the get-go? Let's kind of, you know, hear your story. So take the mic, Dean.
Yeah, no, thanks. You know, and I'll try not to spend too much time on me. I hope that we get the opportunity to deliver a lot of, you know, the things that I've learned through the years to your listeners. I hope we get done and it's one of the best episodes they've ever listened to. But, you know, I look back, I think I was always an entrepreneur. In 7th grade, I sold bubble gum. In 10th grade, I cut firewood and split it and sold it. In 12th grade, I would buy wrecked cars, fix them up and sell them. And then I did that same thing with real estate in my early 20s. And that's what kind of formed my career. But, you know, when you look back in hindsight, some of the things I'd love to deliver that I wish I knew sooner. You know, I had dyslexia all through school. I couldn't read horribly. I mean, I couldn't read at all. I was a horrible reader, and I just couldn't comprehend. I literally couldn't. I remember 7th grade, Mrs. Thompson in special ed, that little room, you know, that with no windows in it. I remember that room and her calling me stupid once a month. And I look back at that, and I was lucky enough to find a way years later, because that crippled my confidence as a kid. Like, still, I'm 46 years old. I'm talking about 7th grade, right? But that crippled my confidence for a long time because I felt, well, there's no way I'm going to college. I'm stupid. And there's no way I'm ever going to get a good job because I'm stupid. And I was lucky enough, without mentors or being smart enough to read books at a young age, to flip that and use that as power, as motivation to prove them wrong. But I think back and I look at that, on how many people are judged by an outdated scorecard, and it sticks to them forever. And I think from in hindsight, looking back, the one thing that I'd share, there's a million things to success, right? We all have our own ingredients. It's like it's making, you know, a soup. Everybody's got their own ingredients to their success, but we got certain ingredients that hold us back from success. And one of the biggest lessons I'd love to share, and it's been important in my life, is when I realized that the biggest BS we were ever told is to work on our weaknesses. I could stand in front of 15,000 people on a stage, and I'll say, how many people in here heard or feel they need to work on their weaknesses? And 90% of the room will raise their hand every time, and I'll watch their face, I'll watch their confidence drain. And it's the biggest bunch of BS in the world. When you look at anybody listening right now, if you've had success in your life, if you've had fun, joy, passion, living to the fullest extent of your life, it means that you found something you were good at and you got great at it. Even if it was at that moment, if it's being a parent, being a spouse, making money, whatever it is you do. And what I've realized the older I get is the hell with what I stink at. Just get so amazingly good at what you're already good at. Fine-tune and polish your unique ability that when you get that good at something, you can afford the energy, the love, the joy, and the income to pay for people to do the things that you're not good at. You know, the prime example is I literally barely read a handful of books. By the time I was in my 20s, I barely read a handful of books because I just was a horrible reader. But I look in hindsight, it made me more audible, good at audible learning. It made me a very visual learner. And when I wrote my first book, Totally Fulfilled, I wrote that book. I gave it to an editor. And the first thing the person said is, this really isn't a book. This is a 200-page conversation. And I remember all those old thoughts immediately came in my head of Miss Thompson in 7th grade and not being smart in school and lacking confidence. And that's a moment that we all face. And again, I'm just sharing one instance in my life that I hope is reflecting that you guys can put in place in your life. Is at that very moment, Mrs. Thompson was ringing in my ear. I could have said this story, why did you even try to write a book? Which I did for about 2 days. Why'd you write a book? You're not smart enough. People who write books are very smart. They went to college. I barely got out of high school. I didn't even go to a semester of college. So all those limiting beliefs plowed in. But about 48 hours later, I feel blessed. I just said, no, that's his opinion. My unique ability is delivering a message. Maybe I'm not a great writer, a great speller, great with grammar. I don't use big words, but I have a message. And I just hired another editor just to clean up my words. And I was blessed that book hit the New York Times bestseller list in under 10 days from when it was released. And I've had multiple ones since then. And I'm horrible at writing. But I'm really good at hopefully delivering a message that inspires and helps change people's lives. So the heck with spelling. I still can't spell good. Who cares?
That's actually such a powerful lesson. It's like, you have a teacher at such a young age telling you you're stupid, which is like the worst thing any educator could ever do, and just so debilitating. And it's like taking what you don't have and using that as fuel. It seems like that's what you've been able to do, is taking when someone says no, you use that as fuel to drive you further. Use that as motivation to drive you further and to continue to accomplish what you wanted to do.
Yeah, I'm really close. He's a good friend of mine, Tony Robbins, who I love, and he's a great friend. And he put it really eloquently. I watched him on stage do this once, and he was talking. He had somebody come up on stage, and he said, pretend you're stressed, you're negativity, you're doing the things, you're the part that's coming at me that would stall my life. And he said, come at me like you're going to hit me. And the guy would run towards Tony, and Tony would grab his hand and use that guy's momentum and dance with him. Right. And he had two versions of it, and it was just so visual. And I love visual learning, where he's like, if I just stood here, he pounds right into me. He knocks me out. He could kick my butt, knock me out if you just stand there and take it. Or what if that negativity, the things that go wrong, people who tell you can't, people who tell you you're crazy, you just take that energy and dance with it and use it as fuel to push you in the direction that you want to go. I think we're so ingrained with staying on the path and doing what other people do that when we step off, even just an inch off the path, we get looks, we get talk, we get people saying you're crazy. I'm sure everybody listening right now that's had a breakthrough in some area of their life, somebody who loved them told them they were nuts, they were insane, they're crazy for listening to you of these incredible podcasts. They're dreamers, they're painting too big of a future, they don't get real, right? That's unfortunately society. The majority of society aren't listening to this every week or how often you do this, and they should. So, we have to prepare ourselves to give love and caring, but know that unfortunately most of the world are not going to think like the people listening right now.
Very powerful. This brings up, this really powerful quote by the Winston Churchill, the man in the arena quote. Are you familiar?
Mm-mm.
It's just incredibly powerful. And it's just along the lines of what you're talking about here. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who never know nor victory nor defeat.
Wow, if you could see right now, I got goosebumps all over my arms. I've never heard that, and I appreciate you reading that. No, it's incredible, and these principles that Winston Churchill and everybody throughout time have shared are just, they're proven principles, and if people have the opportunity to just explore them, if they can let go of what the world has taught them in so many cases, right? Even a glimpse into an empowering thought rather than a negative thought can be the spark for someone to start tomorrow different than they've ever started any other day. The one thing, one of my mentors that I had now, I belong to Strategic Coach, Dan Sullivan. He's an entrepreneurial trainer and just a great guy. And one of his quotes always is, as an entrepreneur, as someone that wants to explore their heart, want to find their passion, anybody who wants to step off the path, basically, you have to protect your confidence. Because without confidence, you don't move forward, right? How many of us didn't ask the girl on the date, or didn't ask for the job promotion, or didn't get up and talk when you wanted to, just because of that lack of confidence? But that little lack of confidence on a daily basis, even, I love it, and I digress here a little bit, but I love to share. People think if they have zero confidence, they don't make it. And if they have all the confidence, it's good. We all know the days when you're just confident as heck, something you tried worked, the relationship's going good, nothing can go wrong, right? But for me, if your confidence is even 10% off, you don't get what you want. And so the one thing I would stress to everybody is protect your confidence at all levels. That your thoughts are who we are, right? Our thoughts are who we become. I mean, I love listening to old, like Earl Nightingale, The Strangest Secret.
Yeah,
it's just so.
You can listen to it over and over.
Oh my God,
and it's still great.
Yeah, it was done in the 40s, and it's so simple. But if you ever get off track, grab old Earl Nightingale. Spend 20 minutes. The first 20 minutes is all you need. And just remember that what we think about is who we are. And if we think we can't, if we think we're going against the grain, if we think we're insulting other people, we think we can't, then we can't.
Yeah. When you do things differently, as anyone who's an artist or an entrepreneur trying to create and do something, whenever someone's doing something differently, people have something to say, of course. So how else do you handle the opinions of other people?
Here's the evolution of living a life true to your heart, or living through your passion, is that you'll always have a certain group of friends or family members that'll be there forever. But you also evolve, because, I always said, I don't know if I heard this or I made it up. I've been saying it for so many years. I don't remember. But, if you're in a ditch with 10 people and you're the only one really trying hard to climb out, it's a lot easier for those guys to just grab your belt loop and pull you back down where you are than them to try to climb out with you. And,
right.
And if you recognize that, Joe Polish, another good friend of mine, always says there's battery drainers and battery chargers. And I've gotten to a point in my life where I try to have love for everybody, no ill thoughts. But if you're a battery drainer, if you're glass half empty, if you're a scarcity mindset, if you think things are going to hell in a handbasket, and people that want more are dreamers, I have to slowly emerge those people out of my life. And sometimes they're people who love you and are really close to you. I just have to get rid of those conversations. I made a pact with myself 8 years ago that if I see a phone number come in on my phone, or an email or a text, and I go, then I have to get that person out of my life. Because there's just so much time in a day, and I want to focus on the things that can take me, my family, and the people I love to a whole nother level. And if you leave a conversation with somebody and you feel like they plugged into you and drained your energy, then you got to be aware of the energy vampires.
Yeah.
Because we got a lot to do in this life, and we don't know if we're here once or a whole bunch of times, whatever you believe. But I want to make this one count.
Absolutely. I'm noticing, I'm feeling that you're referencing other high level people. So I'm thinking, what role does the people around you, like your circle of influence, if you will, or mastermind, group, what role does that play on your personal development, your success in life?
It's everything. I mean, because let's be honest, the people who are listening to you right now, listening to us, if they're still on the line, they're the crazy ones. They're the ones that everybody says are nuts, that you take too many chances, you risk too much, you want too much, you should be satisfied with what you have. Don't outstep who you are. Like the rest of the world thinks this group is crazy. So if you surround yourself with that too much, and eventually you'll believe it. Earl Nightingale, I just listened to The Strangest Secret again 2 weeks ago, so it's fresh on my mind. There was one point that stood out. He said, 100 young men graduating high school all have dreams, aspirations, want success, want love, but by the time they're 65, 1 will be rich, 3 will be successful. That's just unbelievable. And he says, what was the difference of each one of them? And I truly believe it. Besides your thinking, if you think you can or think you can, it's the people we surround ourselves with. It's amazing. It's so awesome that whoever's listening right now, I commend you. You're filling your mind with not just positivity, not just dreaming. You're filling your mind with the things that are proven to take you to another level. If you listen to a negative weekly podcast on how screwed up the world is, how bad the president is, and how our country's going to a hell in a ham biscuit, there's no opportunity, there's no love, the internet's ruining the world, we're running out of fossil fuel. If you listen to that every week, that's who you'd become. So, I mean, just the little bit of listening right here, right now shows me the type of people that you surround yourself with, or people surround you with.
Absolutely. And I find that the type of people that you want to surround yourself with are the type of people who are willing to invest in themselves. And, I'm wondering for you, at what point did you really start investing in yourself, like financially investing in yourself? And because I know even for myself and for some of my friends as well, it's like spending money to invest in yourself, other than just a book, but actually getting like a business coach or a mentor or investing in a program. Like that's another level of just searching for personal development stuff on YouTube, which is great. And I do that too, but actually spending money and willing to put in time and effort and maybe even travel. Like, can you talk about some of those experiences you've had? And
yeah, for sure. I think that's incredible. No, my life went to a whole nother level about 8 years ago. I joined this Genius Network group. It's a buddy of mine, Joe Polish, is a really great guy, great entrepreneur, great marketer, and got to surround myself with people that were just like me, all striving for more. So I paid $25,000 a year to be a member of that, and I go 4 times a year. I joined Strategic Coach about 6 years ago, and that's in Toronto. So I fly to Toronto once a quarter to have a day with Dan Sullivan. I think that's another $25,000. And you surround yourself with the right people and the education. And because here's the thing, like the simplest way to look at it is, when I wasn't smart enough to do any of that when I was young, and probably I couldn't afford it when I was young. And in hindsight, I would have given every dollar I could to know this wisdom, because the hardest way to learn is on your own, right? Trial and error is the most costly learning path on the planet. But I always say when I'm up on stage, I'll say, if there's a big patch of woods and there's a clearing on the other side, I said, you could just say, I'm just going as fast as I can. You can run into the woods, fall in a ditch, get beaten up by prickers and mud and all that stuff. Where if someone else was smart enough and they spent the time or the money, maybe there's a path that someone else already forged. Someone already cut the path. And at this phase of my life, I will pay for speed whenever I can. I will pay for that roadmap from someone who's actually doing it. Now, I also don't like is when someone claims to be a guru because they made a few dollars and they're a good marketer. That do your research. You're going to invest with somebody, make sure they're a professional and have had massive success in what they do, right? It's like getting marriage advice from someone on their 5th marriage and not happy, or getting relationship advice from your single friend, or money advice from your broke friend, right?
There's a lot of that going on.
Yeah, the most costly advice in the entire world is bad advice. Bad advice can ruin your life. It's not free. When someone gives you bad advice, it's not free. If someone says, leave your relationship when you shouldn't, that's horrible. If someone tells you not to take advantage of coaching that could get you in a new business or change your life, and you listen to them, it's the most costly advice in the world. So I'm a huge advocate of getting out there, seeking the right people, and learn from other people's mistakes and their success. It's the fastest path to get where you want to go.
Yeah, you said Genius Mastermind. I'm familiar with Joe Polish, his I Love Marketing podcast, and his Strategic Coach with Dan Sullivan. So you said $25K. That's a brand new car. And I think for a lot of people listening, or who haven't made an investment like that in themselves before, that could just be such a huge amount to invest. It's like you said, 4 times a year you meet. So that's roughly $7,000 or so, $6,000 for that day, $6,000 day. But can you give us an example of what's happened after an event like that to you?
There's no doubt that I've gotten that back, and this is a plug for both of them. I admire both of them, and I've gotten that back so many times over with just efficient thinking. Dan Sullivan teaches me efficient thinking. Joe Polish, we mastermind marketing. You know, I was launching my second book, Be a Real Estate Millionaire, and we talked about putting a pre-recorded message sticker on the back of the book before it hit every bookstore in America. We just, no one had ever done it before. We talked it through in one of these events. I stopped the press because the books were getting printed. I put a sticker on the back that said, hey, before you read this book, call. And when they called, I gave them a message, and it enhanced the engagement with our student on a massive scale. I bet you that one thing 8 years ago made the 25,000. I probably made that over 100 times by the time I'm done now, right?
Right.
And those things you just don't have access to when you're sitting by yourself, or you're sitting with people that, you know, even just the aspirational part of being around other people who are just kicking ass, right? And get to share. It's not even a question in my mind. And you know, and now at this phase of my life, we coach people on how to invest in real estate. And I did it all on my own. I started investing in real estate when I was in my early 20s, or actually I did my first deal before the age of 18, but I was really heavy into it in my early 20s. And I made so many damn mistakes. It was insane. I still became incredibly successful. I was blessed. I don't say this flippant, but I was a millionaire in my 20s from real estate. And I lived in a trailer park as a kid. I was broker than broke. I mean, broke. The kids that got embarrassed because, you know, our car was so bad and my clothes were so bad, right? And real estate did that for me, and I learned it on my own. But if I look back now, it's like when I can hand somebody my 25 years of real estate investment wisdom and skills, and I own 600 houses, and I do deal after deal after deal. Like, if I can just hand somebody what took me 25 years to figure out, what is that value worth, right? What you do, right? What is that value worth to somebody if they could just get your wisdom immediately? It's the learning curve, right? And when people start paying for speed, they'll continue to pay for speed as long as it's the right person.
Yeah. Advice for the guy who is willing to take that investment or make an investment in themselves, but is something's holding them back from actually taking action. Because you can get the training, you can get the advice, but implementation is where the result comes from.
Yeah, you know what everybody's afraid of? They're afraid of themselves. When I see this, I mean, I've been blessed to touch the lives of millions of people. So it's not just, I've read tens of thousands of posts on my blog. I live inside my client, my student's mind. And in most cases, when they won't cut the check, they'll cut a check for a car that they know they're going to be sick of in 3 months, or something silly that they don't use, but something that can empower their lives. They'll question. If they know the person training is good, then that's not even a question. It really boils down to is, will they actually do the work?
Right.
And I have a little something that I'd love to share that I think could be a huge help to everybody listening right now, is find your true why. Now, I know that sounds like, it's a big 30,000 foot find your why, but when I'm going to give you a little example here. When I'm on stage, I'll say to everybody, how many people are in this room because they want financial freedom? And the whole room raises their hand. And I always say that that's not it. It's not a strong enough why. Financial freedom is not enough if you pay for education, if you pay for this wisdom. The first time you hit a roadblock, first time someone says no, first time you have to work late, first time you fail. Financial freedom is not enough. And I do something called the 7 levels deep, and I'll go fairly quick. If you ask yourself 7 times why that's, and it's great to do with someone else. So I'm going to give you an example. The first time I ever did this, I hired someone for $10,000. I paid for a day of consulting. And I hired him because I am always obsessed with getting more of my students engaged and actually using what I teach them, right? You can have all the wisdom in the world. You don't use it, it doesn't work on its own, right? So he came in and he said, have you ever done the 7 levels deep? And I said, no. I said, tell me, but I'll give it to my students. He goes, no, I want to do it with you. So I'm going to give you this example, and then I'm going to tell you some examples of, I've been doing this for years, month after month on stage. I just pick a stranger out of the audience. But I said, he said to me, okay, so why did you hire me? And I said, because I want more people to use my education so they can change their life. He goes, oh, that's really great. Thanks, Dean. He writes that down. He goes, okay, Dean, why is it important for people to use your education and change your life? And I said something I remember the top three. That's what we'll get to. I said something like, well, I want to set a new standard in my industry that people have to step up to my level of education, or they got to get out of my way. I don't like people pissing in my wells. Basically, I remember saying that to him. So he's like, well, okay, Dean, that's great. I asked you why, and you said first because you wanted to change more lives, and second, you want to be the leader in your industry, set a new standard. So why are those two things important to you? And I remember I said a couple more, and I think the fourth one, you switch. When you ask yourself this 7 times with the previous answer, what happens around the third time, when there's 3 left, around the 4th or 5th question, is you go from answering with your mind, what you're programmed with, what you think you want, till it flips to your heart. And I remember getting emotional. By the time I got to the top one, I was crying, hysterical, literally. And I had some of my staff, this consultant, it was like an ugly cry. It wasn't just like tears falling out of my eyes. Is because I found something that day that stuck with me forever. I found my why. When I got to the 3rd question, I said, I never want to go backwards. I don't even know where it came from. I didn't hire him because I wanted to do my business. I hired him because I didn't want to go backwards. And he said, okay, Dean, that's good. And I started feeling a little emotional. He said, okay, Dean, I asked you all these questions. So why is it important for you not to go backwards? And I said, I don't want my kids to have to live the life that I lived as a child. I want them to be free to make decisions, not spoiled, but have the ability to empower their unique abilities and not have to do all those things. And I realized why I worked so hard my whole life. But I've been working hard before kids. And he said, all right, Dean, there's one more time. Why is it important that you empower your kids and do that? And it just came out. And I said, because I want to be in control. And for me personally, I don't know what this is in your life, but for me personally, my parents were married 5 times each. I moved 20 times by the time I was 19. Every time I get a new stepbrother, stepsister, live in a new place, have new friends, be in a new school, I got ripped out and changed. I was always feeling insecure and moving. And I felt so out of control as a kid. At that moment, I realized my why. I never wanted anybody, I never worked for anybody. I never had a job my whole life. I never worked for anybody. I didn't want to work for anybody. I didn't want anybody to tell me what to do. And I also didn't want my parents to be in control of my life, because they weren't doing that great of a job. So when I knew my why, I've been empowered on a whole nother level since that day. And I share that 7 levels deep wherever I can. I get up on stage and I'll have a big guy come up on stage and he's like, I know my why. I want to clean up my neighborhood. I just remember this one. He goes, I want to clean up my neighborhood. My neighborhood, there's a lot of boys in that neighborhood with no dads. And I want to give them that vision. I'm like, God, what a great thing. So I said, why is it important for you to clean up that neighborhood and help those kids? Next one was like, because, I just had this vision and I want to serve God, and great answers. It was in his head because he remembered. When I got to the 3rd one or the 2nd one, he said, this big guy sat in the chair, broke down crying, hysterical. And he said, my mom died 3 years ago and I was pretty pathetic before she died. And I want to prove to her in heaven the man that she helped raise.
Wow.
Now, him just wanting to do, clean up his neighborhood, that's strong. But when you know your why, that you want to prove to your mother in heaven the man you become, when people tell you you're crazy, when they tell you you can't, or you can't start a new business, or you're afraid that your limiting beliefs on the inside of you are going to cripple you, find your why so deep that nothing, and I always tell everybody, I said, me, when I have a rough day, wanting a strong business, that maybe could get me through a tough day. Being in control and making sure my kids live a better life and not going backwards, nothing stops me. I'll digest anything. I'll climb over any fence. I'll plow through it. I had a woman come up and say that she wanted to be a strong, independent woman and she wanted to start this new business. By the time she got to number 1, she said her husband left her 3 years ago, who was physically abusive. And he told her she was a loser, pathetic, and she'd never amount to anything. And she said, screw him, I'm going to prove him wrong. Like, that's the why everybody listening needs, whether it's painful or not, because you're not going to let anything stop you.
It's like when you hit a roadblock, if your why isn't strong enough, what I'm getting from this here is that if it's not strong enough, it's just, okay, you're just going to go back to your normal day-to-day living. If your why is like, I want to just, have a laptop on the beach, and it's not so strong. But when you have something that's really deep and that connects to your core and who you are, and it's authentic and true to yourself, you can do and push yourself beyond what's normal. You can pick up a car, so to speak. Agreed.
And what I always think of too is everybody turns around.
Yeah.
Do you want to, if you're listening right now, you're not one of those people that want to turn around. Find what you're good at and get amazing at it, and stop focusing on what you suck at. Let someone else do it. I can't spell good. I use spell check and and editors, right? And I know that might sound simple, easier now. You say, well, you're doing good financially, you got money, you can afford that. No, what I found is when you live in something you're good at, your confidence goes up and things are attracted to you, and you get to plow through and be your authentic self rather than this shell. I would just really, really, when you start thinking through your why, remember that some of it is just psychological conditioning through the years of people telling you can't, living through negative news, teachers telling you to follow the path, stand in line, go to college, get good grades, get a good job. We're so conditioned to stand in line that when we step off, sometimes we think we're odd, and we're not. We're just finding who we are. And if you need to find your why to get off the path or start a new one, then dig in and find it.
Boom. All right. This is great. We're cooking something up. This is already a fantastic episode. Let's dive a little bit deeper now and jump into the knowledge round. So I'm just going to ask you some rapid fire questions here.
Go for it.
Welcome to the knowledge round, where the guests will be asked rapid fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime. The first question I have for you, Dean, is what advice would you give to someone who's feeling kind of lost or unsure of their purpose?
Lost or unsure of their purpose is, I don't want to repeat myself, but for me, it's always an evolving process. We're always looking for our purpose. Is think of the things, write down, take a piece of paper, split it in half. On the left-hand side, write the things that make you smile, that cause you to be happy, that inspire you, that you would get up for. Don't worry about if they're making you money or not. But what are the things on the left side that just inspire you? Is it helping others? Is it jumping off cliffs? Is it starting your own business? And on the right side, write the things down really fast. Don't overthink it, that disempower you. Fighting with a spouse, causing, is it confrontation? Is it working for somebody else? Is it limiting yourself? And don't overthink it, and don't feel like you're going to be judged. And I'd go back and circle the top 3 on each side and just see which one you're leaning for. I've had so many people do that exercise, and they're living completely on the right-hand side of the top 3 things that they hate the most about life. They're doing on a daily basis, so you don't have time to find your purpose. You don't even know what your purpose is because you're just plowing through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Dean, what was holding you back from becoming the man you are now today?
Limiting beliefs. I went for years thinking I wasn't smart enough because I wasn't good at reading. I wasn't rich enough. I didn't come from money. I didn't go to college. People who make money go to college. They're smart. They have good pedigree. They have parents who support them. It was all these bullshit stories, excuse my language, that just fed inside of me from other people in society. And when I stopped believing them, I started living.
Yeah. Absolutely. And this is probably so many guys in this question here, but can you name a person who's had a tremendous impact on your life, like a mentor? Why and how has this person impacted your life?
I'll have to default to Tony Robbins. He's a great friend now, but he wasn't a friend 12 years ago. 12 years ago, I was going through a transition. Just so everybody knows, I feel blessed today to own hundreds and hundreds of properties and have a monster company, and my brand is the biggest in the world when it comes to real estate education. I'm speaking all over the world. Less than 10 years ago, I was broke. I had lost everything. And I made some bad business decisions with a partner. I'm not going to blame anybody. I made the decision to be a partner with someone, and it didn't go well. And I had to move out of my house. I moved into a tiny little apartment. I wrote Be a Real Estate Millionaire in a rented little house when I was down to nothing. And when I was going through that, I got Tony Robbins' Gain the Edge CDs, and I listened to those things every day, and it helped me find the man that I knew I was, who got me there in the first place. It reminded me who I was, and I felt empowered. So, yeah, I'd written Tony a letter 10 years ago saying, someday I'm going to thank you, and now we talk twice a week on the phone. So Tony had a big impact on my life.
Wow. Okay, so what was that like? From listening to tapes in your small apartment, writing this, and getting his motivation, to him taking you, I hope this comes off right, like him taking you seriously, like when you guys were talking. I'm sure you guys were talking about business, and maybe you were advising him on real estate. Like, what was that like for you?
Well, there was 2 things. So it was surreal, and the cool part is I just stayed my authentic self. Like, our companies probably did about the same in gross sales last year. His live event companies and my live event companies, I don't think they were probably off 10 million each way. So my company, gross wise, is as big as Tony's when it comes to the live event side, right? And Tony got to watch me for years on TV. I've been on TV for 15 years now, 14 years now, and on a lot for years, multiple New York Times bestselling books, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying that to brag, other than fortunately Tony knew me. but he didn't know my story. And I wasn't afraid to tell him and be vulnerable and share and thank him I mean, I gave him a hug. I basically hugged his waist because I'm 5'8" and he's huge. But, and it bonded us I consider him one of my best friends right now because I got to share from my heart rather than trying to put on hey, my company's big and I'm doing great. I was a little kid when I met him, and I think he felt that enthusiasm.
Wow. Just listening to all the things you've been sharing, and then it's just to hear that story, it's like it comes, coming full circle. It's really exhilarating to hear this, like right in front of us, all the listeners, myself included, just in awe.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And so now this is kind of taking it back to where you were as a kid. You said you're cutting up bubble gum and selling them.
Yeah,
Okay.
That was awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, you know what? I'll just tell you why really quick.
Yeah.
School was when I was in 7th grade, lunches were 75 cents. And every parent gave their kid $1. So every kid in school had a quarter in their pocket. So I used to go to the grocery store and I could buy a whole pack of gum for 25 cents, and then I'd sell each piece for 25 cents. So I did that all through 7th grade. I was cleaning up. I was getting every kid's quarter in school. I'd go home with a pocket full of quarters.
That's awesome. now from that, 7th grade, hustling gum. The scenario is if you had 60 seconds with your 20-year-old self, what would you tell him to do and what would you tell him not to do?
I could probably do it in 2 seconds. I'd say follow your heart and don't listen to your head. Your heart always makes the right decision, even though you don't trust it. Most of your life you won't trust it. Start trusting your heart and things change.
I love that. Just you already had the answer probably the second I started talking about it. Now, kind of just reflecting back on where you were and where you are now as well, like what would you summarize as kind of like your philosophy on life and success, if it's different from what you just shared?
Find who you are and don't wait for that thing to happen. Don't wait when you're rich, you'll become the best you. Don't wait when you have your own business, you'll be the best you. Don't wait till the perfect relationship to be the best you, because those things, none of them will ever make the best you. They'll just put a magnifying glass on who you are. I my whole life, because I was broke, I always thought once I made money, then everything would be okay. And I realized I feel so blessed. My brand has done over $1 billion in sales. And when I started making real money, nothing changed in my inner thoughts. That's when I had to work on me, and I dove deep into personal development and really found these principles, these core principles that change. So don't wait for that thing, because that thing is not going to fix you. Fix you now, so by the time you get that thing happens, you'll be the best you.
I think that's something that we don't think about. I think we're constantly chasing this end goal, this end result, as if it's going to make us that man that we want to be, or it's going to make us happy, it's going to fulfill us.
Yeah.
But that's just so good. Just finding that fulfillment within and then going after it from there. I like that. And now just to kind of talk about like what's exciting you today.
Truth, the number one exciting thing in my life, I have 2 kids. I have a 6 and an 8-year-old, Brianna and Brody, 6-year-old boy, 8-year-old girl. And I never would have realized how amazing it is to be a parent. So it's the greatest gift in my life. I love business. I'm a workaholic, and my business is my fun. I don't golf. I don't have a lot of hobbies because I love what I do. But my greatest gift is my kids, and to be able to have that and appreciate it at the level I do. I feel very blessed that I had them at the time in my life I did, because in my 20s and 30s I probably would have been a good provider but not a great dad, and that's okay, because you can always, it's never too late. But that's my most fun thing. And secondly is I'm launching a new book. I got a new book coming out soon, and traveling. I did Asia with Tony, which was fun. I was on stage with 18,000 people in China and 10,000 people in Japan. In 2 weeks, we're going to Australia. And so it's been fun helping to change people's lives, to get, what we had on this phone today, this conversation today. If there was one thing I said, right, maybe not all of it fits everybody, but if there's one thing I said that makes somebody wake up feeling a little different tomorrow than they did today, then at this phase of my life, that's my juice. I just want to deliver everything I can. I want to be vulnerable. I want people to know that they don't have to be perfect to be successful. They don't have to have the pedigree. They don't have to have the money. So I'd say the 2 greatest things in my life right now are my kids and knowing that I can hopefully spark people to a better life.
Yeah. And Dean, how does it feel earlier you talked about like one of your whys was being able to give your family what you did not have. And from all the things I'm hearing, it seems like you just...
Yeah, and the greatest gift I give my kids is I listen, and I'm present at every moment, and I put my phone down, because you realize, the worst thing that can happen is I was broke. Some of me wants to just give my kids everything, and I don't want to raise two entitled kids. And I realize the greatest gift I can give them is to just be a better man and lead by example. Kids don't do what you tell them. Kids do what you do. So my kids have made me a better human being.
You now have the freedom to be with them, like
Exactly.
100%
I
be
do.
with them.
I do. Greatest gift on the planet. The one thing I tell everybody is go get freaking rich, because once you have money and that problem is off your plate, you could focus on being you. If you're sitting in a room, the last thing you thought about was the oxygen in the room. But if I reached over and grabbed your throat, you'd think about nothing but oxygen and be the only thing you could think about. And everybody listening right now, if your wallet is squeezed financially, you think about money way too much, and you're not allowing yourself to be the best you. So you owe it to yourself, you owe it to your family. Go get freaking rich, make it happen, have the persistence, find the why, break through, don't listen to other people's crap, make it happen, take money off the plate, and become the best you can.
Oh man, that's just a great. And I know for those listening, you do have an upcoming event, Dean, coming up in April 24th in Ontario, Canada.
Yeah, in Toronto, yep.
Oh, and Toronto. It's a Freedom Through Real Estate in Canada.
Yeah, it's going to be an awesome event.
Can you talk to us about that? Like what's happening there? And
yeah, I when I start, I try not to take too many events. So I probably in America do 3 or 4 events a year tops, and I'm doing only 3 or 4 around the world with Tony because I love him. But other than that, I love being with my family too much. I could literally be on stage every single week all around the world doing really well, but it would take me away from what my goal is. So I pick very few locations. I love Toronto. And I had a great partnership with someone that said, hey, we're gonna sell out and show everybody in Toronto how to invest south of the border. Right now Toronto's at a peak. America's still on its way up. It's rebound time for America. So it's like you get to buy America on sale, but you need the techniques. So going to Toronto and teach everybody how to invest in America safely, wisely, use their money smart, diversify portfolios, or just learn how to create cash flow from where they live. So pretty stoked. It's gonna be a great event.
I'm looking here right on the website, and you got Tony Robbins says this is an education opportunity that you don't want to miss. Richard Branson says Dean is the type of entrepreneur that makes the world a better place. I mean, these are some of the biggest names in the game here, and so you've got an event coming up endorsed by 2 of the most successful entrepreneurs. Whenever I think entrepreneurs, I think Richard Branson, I think like Steve Jobs, like these names of they're endorsing you. This is just
I'm honored. I feel honored.
From cut
exactly.
from cutting bubble gum to being endorsed by Anthony Robbins and Richard Branson. So you guys can learn more about Dean's event if you go to powerofsuccess.ca. That's powerofsuccess.ca. And actually got a really cool discount code here. If you use promo code KFM007, you can get 25% off your ticket. So KFM007 for 25% off your ticket.
Yeah, and they're really reasonably priced. I do events sometimes where it's thousands and thousands of dollars, and this is really, really affordable because I want to do something great up there. So I'd love to meet anybody coming.
All right, we'll put a cut there. And man, Dean, I'm excited for what's happening with you and what you're doing in your company. So I'm looking forward to it. So take care.
Thanks, dude. This was a great interview. Keep empowering, man. You're doing a great job.
All right, Dean. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your week. Crush the week, and check out San Diego sometime. Next time you're out here, say hello.
You got it, man. Take care.
Take care, Dean. Bye. All right. Wow. What an episode there with Dean Graziosi. And he's got such an incredible story. I hope you guys are blown away just like I was. So April 24th, you can catch him live. April 24th, 2015. He is a Freedom Through Real Estate live event in Canada. So if you go to the website, powerofsuccess.ca, you can learn more. And if you're interested, you could use promo code KFM007. And you can get 25% off your ticket. So that's KFM007 for 25% off your ticket if you go to powerofsuccess.ca. So what you can expect to learn at this Freedom Through Real Estate investment course here is talk about why recent changes in the market make right now a time for you to jump in, why the current condition of the stock market is actually a massive benefit to making money in real estate, how to safely and confidently invest in real estate, avoid the mistakes of buying bad properties just because you can buy a property doesn't mean you should, how to be an educated real estate investor, the fastest and safest way to the end solution, systems to find deals others cannot, and how to invest safely and wisely, capabilities to know you can successfully create financial freedom through real estate, and guys, so much more. So go to powerofsuccess.ca and use promo code KFM007 to get 25% off your ticket. I mean, Tony Robbins said, this is an education and opportunity you don't want to miss. Richard Branson says, Dean is the type of entrepreneur that makes the world a better place. So guys, check it out, powerofsuccess.ca, and use promo code KFM007 to save 25% off. All right, hope to see you guys there. Take care. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast. Hundreds of interviews and 1 million downloads later, we're continuing to build an international movement, and we've just started. So if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave a review in iTunes. It really helps to grow the podcast. Guys, 2015 is the official year of living with purpose, where every day you do only the things that matter to you. You wake up, live with purpose, and take massive action towards the life you want. Check out kfmfree.com to get free tools I've created to help you crush life. Again, that's kfmfree.com. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, and I'll see you in the next episode.